This is one of the most saddest moments in an applicant's life. Finally, they have gotten an admission to do their master's or PhD in the US or Canada. Very excited and very happy to have finally gotten that admission letter. But as they read through the admission letter, their happiness turns into sadness. Why? Because there's no funding, there's no scholarship, there's no tuition waiver, there's no tuition support. It's just an admission letter. At this point, for most people, they think that funding is very scarce in the US or Canada. Funding is too competitive, or they think that they will never get funding in the US or Canada. But after years of studying graduate funding system, both in the US and Canada and some other European countries, there is one very important question that most people fail to ask. The question is this: why did that university, that department, or that professor, why did that department only give you admission but did not give you funding? Because admission and funding are two different evaluations. What they are telling you is that you are only fit for admission but not for funding. In that same application that you did, that you got admission without funding, another person also had admission with funding. So the question is, why did they only give you admission, but to another person, they gave the person admission and funding at the same time? The reason is very simple. You don't understand graduate funding system in the US and Canada. The other person truly understands how graduate funding works both in the US and Canada, and he was able to structure his application to align and fit into exactly what they are looking out for. Most people think that application to the US or Canada for funding is just about your grades. It's just about your high GPA, your strong SOP. These things are very, very much important. But there is something equally more important than these ones. You need to understand that for US and Canada, their graduate funding system is research-based system. What it means is that what they are evaluating to give you that funding is completely different from what you are thinking. You are thinking about your grades and your high GPA and your strong SOP. They are evaluating your research potential, your supervisor alignment, your potential to be a future researcher. The professor looks at your CV and he's asking, can I work with this student in my lab or not? That is what the US and Canada graduate funding system, that is how they are going to evaluate you. And this is the reason why two people, same GPA, they went to the same school, they won't make an application to a university in US or Canada. One gets admission without funding, the other person gets admission and funding. Simple. The other person understands how graduate funding systems work, both in the US and in Canada. Most people are not able to identify the weaknesses in the application document, their CV, their SOP, their research alignment, and every year they continue making application to different universities with the same weaknesses in their application document. And they keep getting the same results, and they think that they are not lucky with application to US universities or Canada universities. It is not about luck. It is about positioning. And that is why for us at Perseverly, we have developed the Graduate Funding Readiness Assessment. This assessment is going to identify all the weaknesses and gaps in your application, and for you to know your funding readiness score before you make that application. So before you apply to that university, before you contact that supervisor for your master's or PhD funding, both in the US and in Canada, take the Graduate Funding Readiness Assessment.